Good afternoon, Traveling Stories fans and family and friends, and we are excited that you are joining us today. Super excited today to have Grayson Parker, worship minister at the Venue Church in Chattanooga. Many of you might know him from around these parts. You've probably seen him at youth conferences. You've been at a couple different things. I think you played state convention some and different things for the Church of God of Prophecy. But you've probably seen him around. I know he helped out a little bit at Redemption also, if I'm not mistaken, played at Redemption a little bit. And now, as I said, he's moved to Chattanooga and been at Venue Church for about 6 years now.
Yep, going on 7 in October. Yep.
Yes. Yes, and we're excited to have him on today. And Grayson, we always start off with our testimony because we believe that getting our story out, traveling story is all about getting our stories out so people far from Christ can hear them first and maybe see, hey, somebody's going through the same thing that I'm going through. But also people that have already given their life to Christ that can see, hey, I can give my story. So with that being said, can you tell us how your life was before you met Christ?
Yeah. So actually, I met Christ pretty early in my childhood because I was a PK.
Yes.
I grew up and I was actually in Church of God. Growing up, my dad was a Church of God pastor. And he started in Pendleton, South Carolina, which is a very small town.
Yes.
And then he ended up moving back to Anderson. We moved back to Anderson, and he started a church in Anderson for a while. And so I got to see like ministry and church and God even from a young age, almost to the point where like I wanted to make sure I knew God so much I would show up down to the altar like every single Sunday at like 10 years old.
Yeah.
Because I didn't fully understand the relationship side of Jesus. I just knew I needed to know Jesus.
That's right.
And now I get to heaven as if I know Jesus. And so I wasn't even more worried about the relationship. I was just making sure I knew him and I invited him into my life. And so as a kid, I would run down every single week. I think my parents were like, "Are you okay?" Like, do that. So I'm just making sure. I'm just making sure.
Right.
You know, like, I just want to know. I just want to make sure, you know. And so, but honestly, my relationship with him, I don't honestly think evolved until I was like in my late teens and like 18, 19. And even then, like it was still off and on. I grew up, you know, being around church so much. I loved it. I appreciate it. Honestly, I think that's the whole reason I'm in ministry today is because I got to watch the model of my parents build a church and put everything into it. And I think even though as a kid, I didn't know if that was my desire fully for my life, I always saw it and that seed was always planted. And so I think over time, the more and more I was growing up and even becoming an adult and different things, like I realized that the things that I desired were not the right things.
Yes.
And they were only like temporary things. And even though I would bounce around temporary to temporary almost to say like, I just always felt like there was a hole, you know, obviously there was something missing. There was something that wasn't a full desire of mine that like, you know, just where I felt like, man, I'm in it. I'm doing it. Like, I feel like I know Jesus and I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right things. And I don't know. I just felt like I was always missing something. And so until, you know, really, honestly, I was actually at my dad's church probably off and on up until I was about 18 or 19. And I just felt like God was telling me, you actually need to like branch out.
Yeah.
And like, because I think this is the deal. I think like a lot of times we don't end up really moving forward in our relationship with God or in our life in general because we don't mind staying comfortable.
Yes.
So being around under my dad and my parents all my life, like I was just in this like, I'm a PK. Tell me what, you know, like, I'm the man, like, you know, and also too, I was just like, I just lived in that, off that title almost of like, well, people think I know Jesus, obviously, because I'm a pastor's kid, and people, and I always tried to make the right choices and never get into trouble and different things like that. But like at the end of the day, I never felt like I really knew him and I was living for him to the fullest. And so, when at 18 or 19, I felt like God was saying, you need to go to a different church. You need to like shake it up. You need to like get in an uncomfortable season where you don't know the people like the people here, and you don't know me really like you act like and think like me. And like, because until you get on your own, you really start, I feel like, pursuing him more than ever before, because you start to realize, wow, this being all on me ain't gonna work. Like, I need him. And so I think when I was obedient in that sense at a young age to start, and that's where I did. I started like trying to find a place in other ministries or churches, not necessarily just bouncing around, but like just trying to figure out what that looks like,
Yes.
because I've gone to my parents my whole life and that's all I've ever known. And then I got connected at, Redemption with Pastor Tavner, and we did Unite for a little while, for a year, and that was a thriving youth ministry there doing what it was doing. And so I would say, like, honestly, from 18 on, I felt like I really started knowing God, pursuing a relationship with him and really trying to like grow in that relationship outside of just saying, hey, I'm pastor's kid, like, I know him, y'all assume I know him, everything's cool, I'll wear this mask and do my thing and show up every single week, but never really was feeling fulfilled in life.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I think a lot of times we feel like we are saved by association.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, so like grandma, grandpa was going to church their whole life, and I went with them. Then, and I've gone to the altar. I know, I've heard what I'm supposed to do, and I go do those things. But I never had that encounter with God. I just have emotional experiences with God.
Yep.
And I know him, but I really don't know him. I know him by association. That's like me saying, me and you've talked before. We've known each other for years, and I've never talked to your pastor, Pastor Tavern. But I can say, well, Grayson knows him, so I know him. So a lot of people.
For sure.
A lot of people are like that with Jesus. They're like, my mom knows him, my dad knows him.
Yep. And growing up in church my whole life, I got really good at memorizing stories.
Yes.
But never really like let those sink down inside my heart and in my life and applied it.
That's right.
I would say I've heard those stories since I was in kindergarten, or going to VBS or doing this. Of course, you've heard Daniel and the Lion's Den and Noah's Ark and David.
The old felt board. Yeah.
Yeah, like, exactly. Like, I remember, thank God we don't do that anymore. But thank God for technology.
Yes, I know, right?
But for real, like, and I could go back and be, oh yeah, and act like, and just kind of fit in and act like, yeah, and even almost spit it back at you. But it was never like inside me, and I don't think I ever even applied it or truly believed it, because it was just something I heard all the time. And so,
and it comes from familiar.
Got comfortable.
And I think a lot of times when we get familiar, get comfortable, then we're not really pursuing it, as you said. So when you went out on, went out trying to find, find Jesus, try to find your place, try to find yourself, really, because a lot of times I think God comes to us when we're trying to find ourselves, when we're trying to figure out who we are. We're not just the pastor's kid anymore. We're not just the youth pastor anymore. I mean, because there's some people that have just grown up into it.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Do you remember that moment or that time where it just kind of finally clicked and said, hey, this is it. This is my relation. I found Jesus. I found God. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. To be honest, like, I think fully it was honestly when I moved more so to Chattanooga. As weird as that sounds, and that was when I was, 25, 26. Because I fully just like went all in, solely relied on him, believed in him, believed him, like, and just listened and really started stretching myself in my relationship, because up until then, being in Anderson, South Carolina is such a small town, and my subdivision I lived in is right down the road from my parents and my wife's parents, and like there was just so much comfort and like again just like that rhythm of just going doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And when I moved, and I can tell you a little bit more about that and a little bit about the story of how I got to Chattanooga. But when I moved to Chattanooga, it really stretched me so much that I had to depend on him.
Yes.
It put me so far out there, almost like Peter walking on water.
Yeah.
That like I'm looking at you, Jesus, like I'm needing you, I'm believing you, I'm trusting you on a whole nother level. Like I know this ain't on me because I don't know even what I'm fully getting into and doing, and like I don't even know what you're fully wanting me to do, and like just being able to fully lean into him more than ever before. And I hate to say it like in a sense of like, you know, because even in the natural, you don't want to only have a relationship with someone just because you need them. And you don't want that person on the other side to feel like, well, the only reason he's even pursuing me is because he just needs something.
Yeah.
But like I needed God, you know, more than ever before because I've never put my faith to the test like that process. I've never like relied on him more than ever before until that process. And that's just when I fully just was all in. I even told my wife when we moved, I said, if we're doing this, like there's no going back.
Yeah.
Like he called us to do this. He's obviously, hopefully creating us to do this. Like we heard God's voice and like, we're going to do this thing. And so I think then that's when we solely relied just on him alone because we were giving up everything, our homes, our jobs, our whatever, honestly, whatever our life has built up until that 25 years old mark. I'm literally saying, all right, done with all this, and I'm going and starting over, you know, and doing something else somewhere else that I've never been before. And so, to be honest, I think that was it, that moment.
Now I know music's been a big part of your life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Since you were young, correct?
Yep. So I played drums. I started with drums. I played since I was like, honestly, in my dad's church at like 5 years old. I picked it up at a young age, fell in love with it, loved it. Honestly, it was kind of a natural thing. I used to go, when I was in Church of God before my dad was a pastor, I used to go to church and I'd bring 2 number 2 pencils with me. I'd pull out the hymnals because Lord knows I wasn't singing. Yeah. And I would beat on those things. And I would turn around and look back at the drummer and watch what he was doing, and I would do it. And so I just fell in love with it from there. And then at 18 or so, I was playing drums again at my dad's church from 5 years old to 18. And I just felt like God was saying, hey, it's time to get off the drum kit, learn how to play guitar, start worship leading. And I was like, And I didn't know how to play guitar, but thank God for YouTube and Google and technology. I taught myself through watching videos of other people showing you how to play chords and doing stuff. And I just played and did it. And ever since then, just learned multiple instruments along the way and loved to songwrite and produce music and do different stuff like that. But yeah, I love it. I love it a lot.
Yeah. So, we understand that worship is a big part of church, not just worship, but the music part of it. Yep. I've heard one, I think it's Stephen Furtick that said it brings an atmosphere of praise. It breaks up what you're going through. Yep. Another Abram Staten, who was a past guest on here, he said that it's like the greeting.
Yep.
He said you can walk into a room, and if the greeting sucks, then it can change. And he says now music's not the whole thing, but if the greeting's bad, it's hard to get past it. Same way with the music part, the worship part, the singing part. And can you tell me how is that a ministry to you? How do you look at it, the music part of the ministry?
Well, I mean, even if there's even any worship leaders watching this later, there's 2 things that's really clicked with me. Pastor Tamner told me one of them, and I've been realizing the other one is with worship. He told me a long time ago, he said, worship is the only thing that God can't give himself.
Yes. And
so the reason why it's so important is, and the reason why he loves it so much is because he's not going to worship himself.
That's right.
Like, look how awesome I am and how great I am, you know, and like, but there's just, it shifts atmospheres, and it opens up, I think, the doors and the windows of heaven, and invites him into the room to only do what he can do.
That's right.
And if he is overflowing out of us and out of our hearts, I mean, it's him, his atmosphere and his presence is what changes everything. Right. And when we invite that into the room, and when we welcome him into the room, or even in our car or our closet or our house or whatever it's at, like, you really can feel the atmosphere and feel the room shift, and even just the presence, like of feeling down one minute, but now I'm feeling up the next minute because I feel something different, and it's not me, it's him.
That's right.
And so to me, I think it's everything. I think it's almost like, in a natural sense, it tills the ground, it prepares the soil. So then when a pastor gets on stage to preach, or a word is being delivered, which is the seed being planted into our hearts after the ground got tilled, I think that matters more than anything, instead of just trying to shove a seed directly in the ground and going, well, I hope that works, and you walk away. But it takes time, it takes work, it takes preparation, it takes that tilling and the watering and the fertilizing, for that seed to be planted, and to watch it grow inside people's hearts. And then I know this is the other reason why it's so important, is the enemy, which you can call him Satan, devil, Lucifer, blah, blah, whatever you call him these days. I know he's got many names. You got to remember, he was a worship leader.
Yes.
And so he knows how important worship is. He's not stupid. He knows how important and what it does, what it represents, the atmosphere it created even in heaven when he led worship and praised Jesus. I mean, and God, before all this even happened, he just knows. I mean, the whole reason he fell was because he wanted that worship to start becoming to him. And that's the battle. That's the natural battle with us these days, is making sure that we always keep the worship and focus on God and not ourselves, and that we're lifting his name up above every name, not our name or something else. And I think with social media, with audiences, with attendance, with everything going on, we have to realize how important it is of what we get to do, but who we're doing it for.
That's right.
I know we say that even in the church world, and it's like, oh yeah, I know, we're doing it for God. Yeah, cool. But deep down, you really got to make sure your heart is doing it for God, because you can say it, again, where you get in that comfort zone of, I know what I got to say and what I'm doing and all this in front of who. But at the same time, if you're not behind the scenes knowing that it is genuinely for him, that's going to be a bad place. And then also too, it's felt in the atmosphere.
That's right.
Because all of a sudden you're not, again, allowing God to step in and do what he can do. You're allowing yourself it to always be about what you're able to do. And the truth is, I look at our talents as tools to get to build the kingdom and build the atmosphere, teaming up and pairing up with him in his presence. And so, I think it's very important. And I think that's why the enemy tries to come against worship leaders and come against the atmosphere of worship in churches. And that's honestly a sole reason why I fight for a distraction-free environment. In the natural, I don't look for perfection. I just look for excellence. And excellence is doing the best you can do with what you have. And because it's like the enemy will use any kind of distraction to get your mind and heart and thoughts off of his presence and what he's doing in the room into what's going on. So I feel like that's just as important for a production team and a worship team too, to make sure that they're doing their very best unto him, not unto men, unto him, giving him their very best, because it says this, the Bible says God is great and greatly to be praised. Right. So he deserves something great. He deserves something amazing and our very best. And I think eliminating all those distractions every single week is a huge thing too, so people can continue to focus only on him.
Yes, and I love how you said, especially there at the beginning, God brought me this, and I don't know if it was through another pastor or through devotion or something like that. Yeah. But if you look at it, everything that we do on earth, we won't have to do in heaven except for worship. We won't need to pray in heaven. I mean, we'll be in communication. We won't have to preach in heaven. I mean, he's the
Yep.
preacher, so you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, right. We just gonna show up and give God everything.
that's right. But worship is something that we'll be doing in heaven. If we can't do that here on this earth,
I agree.
like to excellence, like you said, if we, and it's preparing us there.
Yeah.
For there, and we have to make sure that mindset is we're doing this for excellence, like you said. We're not just going through the motions of our worship here on earth, or just because we like a song, or just because we like a style, or it's our chance to worship God.
Yeah, and I would even say, because you hit the nail on the head with the style and the preference side. I say this all the time: His presence is more important than our preference.
That's right.
If God is doing what He wants to do, this thing too, we pray every single week, and we don't just pick random songs. We pick, God, what does this week need to be? What does the people need to be singing and feel? What does the atmosphere need to be this week? Because we understand, like, it's all about Him. Like, and it doesn't mean you can't pick songs and do whatever you do as a church or an organization, but like, at the end of the day, I mean, it's all about Him being able to work, and He knows what the people need more than we do before they even show up, and He knows what's going to need to happen this coming week or this Sunday more than we do, even as pastors prepare their messages or anything. Like, He knows. He can give us the playbook, the instruction manual, and everything, and we can rock and roll. But that's the thing: we get in, we want our preference, we want to make sure we felt good about what we did and sung, instead of just, man, did God do what He wanted to do today? Did people's lives get changed? And I think that's the thing. We got to keep that. I always say we got to keep the main thing, and like, that's Him, so.
That's right. That's right. So you were talking about when you was 25, you moved up to Chattanooga to Venue Church.
Yep.
If people don't know anything about Venue Church in this location, Venue Church is, like I said, about 6-7 years old. And it was started by Pastor Tavern, who was at Redemption as a youth pastor. And felt the calling to go start a church, so he moved to Chattanooga. God laid it on his heart. I've seen some of the story about how God laid it on his heart to move there, and they moved there. But God has really blessed the church. I know I've seen where, if I'm not mistaken, y'all were put in as one of the fastest growing churches in the United States.
Yep.
And there's 2 locations now, started in just like a storefront, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And now y'all have 2 buildings that you're at. So can you tell me a little bit of the story about how, I know you were asked, if I remember right, you were asked to go, and then there was kind of a pause, but then you went. Can you kind of tell that story a little bit?
Yeah, guilty. So, I mean, me and my wife and my son Bryce, we were one of the families asked to come. He felt like, God was calling us, but He wanted us to pray about it, so we prayed about it, and didn't want it to be just like, we'll be there, and then, because easy come, easy go. So we were like, we wanted to know that God was calling us to go, and so we prayed. We were actually talking about it this past week. We met at the Cracker Barrel on exit 40, the Easley exit, Powdersville exit, whatever you want to call it. And that's when we told him, like, yeah, we felt like God really told us to go, which He did. He really did. I don't know if I've ever heard God, and my wife heard God more clearly in our lives. But of course, with everything, when you're out of that comfort zone, that's when you start flipping that natural switch sometimes. And so, like, people were moving, he moved, their family moved, and they were getting it. And as it got time for us to move, I just started, like, worrying and doubting, and, like, just all kind of stuff started running around. Emotions were all over the place. And I guess because, like, I didn't really have that great relationship with God, I didn't really have a solid thing to stand on. Even though I knew God told us, I was still all over the place. And I think, at the time, my doubting and my worrying and my conversations I was having with my wife, I think started planting that seed in her too, even though she knew that God told us to go as well. And so at the end of the day, we did end up going. I ended up feeling like super guilty about it, because I knew, and kind of shameful, and nobody put it on me but me. Like, Pastor Tavener honestly has been amazing through this whole process. He actually never gave up on us. He would call me all the time, text me all the time. I'd ignore it because I didn't have an answer, and I felt guilty. And I was like, man, I don't know what to tell him. Like, I mean, I just don't know. And being the leader that he is, like, he's such a obedient guy. Like, I knew he would help push me to be obedient, but I didn't want the push. So I was like, again, just ignoring him. And I was actually at the time flipping burgers at my dad's restaurant. And I was just doing that. And honestly, even in that season, honestly, it was almost about a half a year or so, we weren't going, and we were kind of, I was honestly being disobedient to what God wanted. And so I think in that brought a season of, like just misery almost. Like, at the time, our marriage was like the worst it's ever been. We were arguing and fighting and couldn't agree on anything. Like, I didn't want Bryce to know his parents of being that, so I thought it was brilliant to almost like separate and almost lead myself into thinking like, well, maybe this ain't it. And I was literally staying over at my parents' house at the time trying to figure all this out. And I just remember I was on my parents' couch. I woke up one morning and they have like the skylights that come into the living room or whatever. And I just kind of looked up and I was just like, almost at this point of asking myself, and I honestly think it was even God asking, like, what are you doing? And I was even asking myself, like, what the crap am I doing right now? Like, this is stupid. Like, I'm literally sitting and sleeping on my parents' couch. I have an awesome family, an awesome opportunity to like build the kingdom and do something outside my comfort zone and something I've never got to do before. And like, I'm literally sitting here on my parents' couch being stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I just called my wife and I was like, look, I need to meet you. We need to talk. And I even told her this when we got back together. I said, we got to go to Chattanooga. Our lives literally depend on it.
Yeah.
Like, I just knew if we didn't go, like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I didn't even want to like negotiate, debate, talk about it. I was like, we got to go. We got to go. And so I called Pastor Tavener and I just apologized. I told him, just everything. And I think he already knew where I was at and what was going on. That's why he never gave up on me, which I'm grateful for leaders that God places in our life that see something in us even when we don't, and they're willing to fight for us and never give up on us.
Amen.
So shout out to all the pastors out there. And so when I moved, man, like he just welcomed us, and like it was almost like God never gave up on us. He never gave up on us. And I knew that God was still in it because like we moved in less than a month after making that decision. Everything fell into place. My wife got a job. We found an apartment in Chattanooga. We ended up selling our house. Like, just everything fell into place. And I just knew like, man, God's still in this thing. He didn't give up on me, even though I was being dumb, like, thank God there's more chances, you know what I'm saying? And that grace factor was there. And that's the thing, like, we moved, we made it happen, and God made it happen, and we hit the ground running and haven't looked back ever since. And so it's been a process. It wasn't easy. But now I'm to a point now that, like, if God literally says do anything, I'll do it. I don't care how correct. Because now I've seen what obedience really does bring into your life. And even though I wasn't prepared to take that first step, at first, now that I've done it and I look back and go, that wasn't as bad as I thought, because you kind of create these natural scenarios in your head when it's out of your comfort zone. And I think that now that I've done it, it just, is the best thing ever. And I'm just radically obedient now, and I'm just grateful for that. So
now the Venue Church, like I said, it's in Chattanooga, and you come from Pendleton, where there was, churches. I'm not sure the size, but probably the smaller size.
Small.
Yeah, and then going to Chattanooga and seeing the building process
Yeah.
and now running over, a couple thousand. I'm not sure the exact number, but
Yeah.
and two worship teams, two different facilities in different towns, different states, as a matter of fact, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Working full-time staff. Probably never thought I don't know, but my mindset never thought it'd be full-time pastor, but full-time youth pastor or worship pastor.
Yep.
Seeing things that's being done, seeing the move of God like you're seeing it, being able to, and the reason why, and I don't know if Grayson knows this, but I follow Vineyard Church, and being able to help out in communities, and with food, with just just seeing the excitement of God in that community. I've seen pictures where a Vineyard Church was outside flipping signs, telling people to come, wearing, different things to show, going to the mall, passing out cards all day to invite. You see that, and you see that from a different perspective than the congregation sees, because you're behind the scenes, you're in the office when somebody else is there. Why would you believe that the blessing of God is there? What would you hold that to? I know the Pastor Tavern, but what do you see from him that caused that growth, that God has put in?
Yeah, I think just the leader that he is. I think that the vision and the purpose and the calling that God's placed on his life. I think the reason why you see the church the way it is because he's that way. I mean, even today, like, we could go to the mall, we could go all over the place, and it doesn't matter who he comes into contact with, he's inviting them to church. He's going to give them an invite. He's going to invite them. He'll be obedient if God says pray for them, be generous, different types of things. And we don't really go after people to build big churches and have a bunch of numbers. And, like, we just want people to live their fullest life. It says you can have life to the fullest. A life to the fullest, and we know that it can't never get in that direction unless you, one, meet Jesus and obviously have a relationship with Jesus. And we go for a lot of lost people, and we know lost people aren't sitting in our church. We got to go out there and get them, and we want to make heaven more crowded. We want people to experience that life on earth, that they can have now before they even get to heaven, and just, even if it's just baby steps in the right direction. And so, I mean, from day one, he was the guy out there holding the signs, like passing out the invites, doing whatever it took just to, like, see somebody raise their hand and on a Sunday, and that's honestly our mindset with everything that we do. And everything that we do, when we prepare during the week, when we're out in the cities, when we're out in the towns, when we're out in the communities, like, everything we do leads to just somebody encountering Jesus. And the way the world is right now, everybody has this whatever view about church, about Jesus, about Christians, about whatever, because there's been some probably not so good moments with Christians and churches and different things like that, and people remember those things. But we just want people to know at the end of the day, like Jesus did, he walked around and went everywhere that the religious people never wanted to go. He did everything the religious people never wanted to do. Like, he did, and we wanted to model that, not go around and make everybody mad, but let people know that don't feel welcome at church, that don't feel like they're good enough, that don't feel like God has a plan for them or a purpose for them. Like, we want to do whatever we can to let people know that that it's the opposite. Right. Like, church is not bad. You just had a bad encounter with church because we're people, we're human. But that does not determine who God is and who Jesus is and how much he still loves you right where you're at, no matter what you've done. And so we just go above and beyond to do that. Because if not, I feel like as a church, what are we here for?
That's right.
Like, we're not here to only open the doors Wednesday and Sunday. We're not here to expect people to show up, and we're not doing anything to go get them and let them know that, like, we're here for them and, like, Jesus is here for them. And so, we've just really made a decision, like, if we're going to do that, like, because honestly, Chattanooga is one of the most church cities in America. I mean, Cleveland, You
Yes.
got all the headquarters, the denominations are all hubbed there and everything. And like Chattanooga didn't just need another church. They didn't need another church. And we knew we're not going to go there just to plant another church. Like we're here to really like do something different and really go after the lost people. And we have a lot of church people too, and that's great. And we have a lot of things that build their relationships and grow them as well. But we're just after people. And even whether they get plugged in fully, we would love for them to, because we know that's how they're going to continue on their life journey with God. But even if, like, sometimes with what I do with worship and production, I always want to help create that atmosphere for people, that one moment where they'll just raise their hand
Yeah.
and receive Jesus. And if it's one or if it's 60 something or hundreds, we celebrate that every single week in our staff meeting. And know that everything that we did was worth it, that one moment, and somebody like has receiving life change in those moments. And so I think, again, it's just who he is, the DNA of our church, and it flowed out of him into our staff, and then out of our staff into our volunteers, and out of our volunteers just into the people. And I hear it so much to the point of like, oh, you must be from Venue, because it's almost like we have this like DNA of like, y'all are too happy, or y'all are too nice, or y'all are this, or y'all are that. And we're not being fake. Like, just with everything going on in this world right now, we're just trying to counterpunch it, and like, again, we got hit with that tornado. And so, like, it was a great opportunity for the church to be the church to people. And instead of sitting with our doors shut, we got out there. And I grabbed a chainsaw and I was cutting down trees for 2 weeks straight with a team from sun up to sundown. And I've never done that in my entire life. But I knew like the message it was delivering to the community and to the people. And like, we save people thousands of dollars from calling a tree company and like stressing out and just different things like that. Like, I'm just grateful for those moments, but I'm grateful for the vision and the culture and our pastor, that we have that thumbs up. Like, we are that church, and like, that's who we are, and that's who we're always going to be until the day we die. Like, and so I love that. And I think that's why I think God's blessing that, because he sees and knows the heart of like everything we're trying to do is from a pure place of just trying to make the world better and help create moments for people to just like receive him on another level.
That's right. And speaking of the tornado, I know in the last year, the tornado, coronavirus,
Yeah.
we've had racial, riots, protests, which is, and I was going to ask you about that too, because I know Venue is a very diverse church. It's a multicultural church, multi-generational church, and which is hard to say a lot in the southern states. You've been around, and I'm amazed when churches can step out of their comfort zone and do that, and have that. Even I know there's some leaders that want that, but it's still even hard to, even though they're pushing for it, it's still hard to achieve a multi-cultural, multi-generational church. How, and before we get back to the corona and all that, but how was that vision? And you spoke about it here just a little bit, but that vision, I guess, because of loving people no matter who they are or where they're at, I guess that causes that. The effect of that is to have that multicultural church.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because I think like we can say it all day long that we want this and that, and preach it and whatever, but I think it's fully grasped when it's shown and led and lived out. And so we've been super intentional, always trying to live out what we're preaching and what we believe. And so whether it's on staff, on stage, in the church, out in the community, whatever it is, like, we really are intentional with living that out and modeling that in such a way that it welcomes everybody. Because that's the thing. Sometimes first time guests, I hate to say it, I don't know if they're judging, but they're watching. Yes. And they're seeing if it matches up to everything that's coming out of the pastor's mouth, what they might have heard from word of mouth of somebody else. And oh yeah, come, everybody's invited, everybody's welcome. But then they come, and if they don't feel that, they're like, hmm. So we were intentional with making sure that's the case, because we truly believe it. It's not even like a weird thing that we have to push or like make happen. It's just we are overboard from leadership down on like just creating that environment, and like it has to be in us, because if it's not in us, it's not going to be in the church and in the people. And so, I have all kind of different races on our team, on our worship team, even on stage, worship leaders, production team, everything, and I love it. Like to me, the way I grew up, even though I grew up here in Anderson, like I never experienced totally, you know, not knowing anything different. And so it was easy for me when I grew up playing basketball or whatever it was. Like I hung out with everybody, and I was cool with everybody, and like that's just always been in my DNA. Even though the world and the different news medias and different things are portraying other things, and like so it was easy, I think. Same thing with Pastor, being at Redemption and
Yeah.
different things. It's been nothing but multicultural, and it's been amazing. And so it's been very easy for us to just be us and not have to like push it or win people over to it or anything. We were that day one. And again, I think it was just kind of like the DNA of our church. And so, but if there are churches out there that want it and maybe feel like it's a different thing, like they just got to be intentional. Everything being said from a pastor or their pastor or whatever it is, like help model that in such a way that it's almost not like this one day thing. It's right now, it's today. Like this is who we are, and I'm not just going to talk about it. I'm going to show you,
Yeah.
like this is who we are.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it's easy for people to come in and get connected to, because they see it.
So, and I was, we was talking about all the stuff that's happened in the last year. Also,
Yeah.
y'all had, I know Pastor Tavern, we talked just a little bit, had lost his father then this year too.
Yeah.
And I know we spoke before we came on live. We talked about how Pastor Tavern was awesome at still leading,
Yeah.
even in times of we don't know what's going on. Like I said, with Corona, with the uh, division in our world today, with the tornado going through, with the loss of an important leader there how was the transition as a church? I know I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said it was easy to shut down, but then you got to do something after you shut down. You can't just sit back. And they said the hardest part was starting back up, because now you got to figure out how to keep people safe, that kind of thing. But what was the conversations like at Venue Church, and how and I know y'all had the technology already ahead of time, which shows if we're not prepared beforehand, then we're going to be left behind when we get a chance, or we're going to be struggling to repair. I got an associate pastor that says it all the time. It's better to prepare than to repair. And I believe that completely. So can you kind of tell during this time of the tornado, the coronavirus things, how Venue Church helped continue to minister that way?
Yeah. I mean, when you look back and you look at all the circumstances, you think, golly, what a crappy year, or crazy year. But honestly, I feel like, to be dead honest with you, this has been the best year for our church yet. And I say that because we, one, have never led through a pandemic before, or had our church exist during something like just life-changing as this. They've been hit with tornadoes before, but never since we've existed. And then all the other just things that have kind of come along the way. It hasn't been easy in the sense of like, it's taken a lot of natural work and labor, but this is the cool thing. It's honestly been the most fun, like enjoyable thing ever, because we actually got the opportunity to like not be a church that's only in four walls, and like really go out and be the church through the pandemic, through the tornadoes. Like I said, we got to really make a huge impact there. And then as all the other circumstances have hit, and it's been really cool because of Pastor Tavener's leadership. he just stayed focused, stayed like obedient, prayed every day, wanted to hear what was our next step, what was our next move, what should we be doing, what should we be focusing on, what should we be, you know, because honestly, even with the online presence, we actually did not have all the equipment to go online right away. We we actually were never doing online until this pandemic, and so we shifted gears, knew we needed to go online. We shut down. Um, it didn't really hurt or wasn't really hard to do. I feel like God's just really graced us through a lot of the things. And again, I don't mean it was all easy and we didn't have to have meetings and make decisions and figure things out that we've never done before or any of that. But now that I look back and how time has flown, and the half the year's already over,
Yeah.
and everything that's happened in such a short span of time, I look back and go, wow, that wasn't as hard as we probably thought. And wow, look what God did through these times. And like now, and I don't say God brought the pandemic by any means, but what the enemy meant for evil, God can turn for good. And so we would have never been online if it wasn't for the pandemic. And now we're reaching people all over the world. The tornado came and it was devastating to our community, but we got to really be a light to the community and really be there for Chattanooga and the surrounding areas on a different level before. And it really was a great opportunity to have, even though it came at such a bad circumstance, and just the different things that it's happened. And so I think it's been a really great season in that sense. I hate that all the stuff that's happening right now is happening. Even with all the things going on with the racial things and just the different things out there going on, Pastor Tabner's been really great about casting vision and preaching a few messages on unity and just different things going on like that we can keep our community and things in focus and really just keep the attention on Jesus, not ourselves as a church or venue or we got the opportunity. And this is the thing, man, we're just sold out to trying to to bring heaven on earth, to live the kingdom here now. And we believe in the kingdom, the kingdom message that is being preached and taught. And we know that the kingdom is the opposite of the world. And so, to be honest, we've been trying to do the opposite of everything the world's doing.
Yeah.
We've been trying to do and say and speak and live out and just be the opposite of everything that's going on right now. So when churches and organizations were hit with the pandemic, we've been spending money left and right. And it ain't about spending money left and right. It's we gave away $250,000 one Sunday we gave away some families that were devastated and impacted by tornadoes and everything. So we paid off a single mom's house. We bought a few cars for people. We bought a family an apartment for 1 year and fully furnished it. We gave families that were impacted by tornadoes $10,000 each. And I'm saying all that to say that's really not what anybody would even think to do right now.
Yeah.
But last year, and I don't even know if it was because of this, God gave Pastor Tavner a word that we were going to, for all of 2019, we were going to build leaders and save money. Build leaders and save money. So everything that we did for that whole year had to funnel through, is it going to build leaders and is it going to save money? And so when all this happened, we were ready to do what we could do for the community and the world because we saved money all of 2019. Yeah. And we did not even know all this was going to happen and what that even meant. Pastor Tanner was just being obedient to what God said to do. And so because of that, we were in a great financial place to really help people and not, just be a big church with a bunch of money. We were able to go spend thousands upon thousands of dollars in the community, feeding them for 2 weeks straight and doing the tree thing and doing what we did with that other money and different things like that. And we had people sending in resources that we just kept passing out and getting out. And as soon as we'd get it out, they'd send more. And it was just like this overflowing thing. And so I'm just grateful that, like, during this time, like, we got to really make that impact. I don't think we were fully ready for it, but because of some of the obedience of Pastor Tavener and the leadership, we were able to really, like, not shut our doors like everybody else was. And, like, we just hit the ground running. And so I think it's just important moving forward how we always steward our money, you know, because you never know what's going to happen. And I pray stuff that's happened this year don't happen again, but you just never know. And, like, honestly, I feel like that's honestly when the community needed us more than ever. We're there every single Sunday, obviously saying, hey, we're here for you. But I think we got to really be there for them. And I think it was just super awesome.
Yes. So I always ask this question again, and me and you talked about this a little bit. If you came across somebody that just gave their life to God,
yep.
You just prayed for them, they said, hey, you know, I've given my life to Jesus, I've had this encounter.
Yep.
What would be the first thing that you would tell them? What would be their next step that they would need to take after they've given their life to Jesus?
Yeah. I think, honestly, get connected. I think two things. I think, one, getting plugged in and connected to a church. And I say more so a church, a community. Because we believe you can't do life alone. I think that's one of the problems with why a lot of people don't make it sometimes, is because they've tried to do everything on their own. And, like, and then, too, you don't really know what your next step is. But if you're surrounded by a community of people that's willing to take the next step with you, it's okay not to know what your next step is sometimes, because you're not taking it alone. And so I think community is everything. And, of course, that to me is getting plugged in and connected at church, whether it's serving or just even making a commitment to show up every single week and tear the walls down that we put up to not allow people into our lives. I got this on my own. I'm independent. I've been doing this for years. You know, I've had to grind and do everything on my own to get to where I'm at. And I think that life was never created to be done alone.
That's right.
And so I think that is the next step, because I think you'll never truly figure out what that is unless you get surrounded by a group of people that's taking those same steps with you and in the same direction as you're needing to go, instead of pulling you somewhere else. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I think the other thing is just making a commitment to yourself to never walk away now from the life that you're embracing. The truth is, the only reason I'm doing what I'm doing today, the level I'm doing it on, is because I didn't quit. You know, people see, the church is 7 years old and it's done this and done that. But I've had every opportunity to be tempted to walk away when it got rough or hard, or if it doesn't work out the way you thought, or whatever it is in life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's yours if you don't quit. And so now that you're embracing this life with Jesus, you can't quit now. Don't quit. Like, when you start serving, you get connected to a community of people at church. Like, don't walk away. Don't quit. Like, people are human. Things are going to happen. It's not going to be roses and, like, perfect now that you do know Jesus. But the truth is, it's going to get better if you don't quit. And so I think those two things paired together, getting in a community of people to do life with, and then just making a decision, like, I'm not quitting. I'm not walking away. I'm going to walk, and I'm going to keep taking steps. Even if it's a baby step, one day it's a step in the right direction. And I'm not going to, like, walk away from what God's calling me to do. And as you do that, like, man, you're going to do – personally, like, I've gotten to do things I would have never thought or imagined. And so – and the level that God's allowing me to do things on. And I'm just grateful, like, he never quit on me and I'm never quitting on him. And so, and then just that community of people I get to do life with every single week, it's just been amazing. So.
Yes, and I love that, because I think a lot of times we think after we get saved, all the issues are going to go away, all the problems are going to go away. But that's when they usually get magnified.
Exactly, because he wants to discourage you to quit. And so he's like, that was not what I thought.
You know, that first time, I'll never forget when I gave my life to Jesus, that first 3 days, great, man, I was on fire for God. Then Monday hit, and it was just like, the devil comes after you. And if you don't have those right people around you,
Right.
Connecting with the people. And I would say this, and just to add on, don't connect with people that's just going to be yes people either.
Yes.
Connect with some people that's going to tell you and call you out on your stuff.
Yep.
Sometimes it hurts, but you'll be better.
I say don't tell people, don't get around people that tell you what you want to hear. You need to get around people that tell you what you need to hear.
That's right.
That's like you said, huge.
That's right. And as you said, never give up.
Never give
up. Philosophy major Miley Cyrus says can't stop.
Yeah.
So
good. I believe it till this day.
We can't stop and we won't stop. We laugh about that, but that should be a mindset that we can't stop doing this work for God. We can't stop seeking Him, growing in Him, reaching for Him, and not just we can't stop, but we won't stop. And so we need to really have that mindset. Never thought Miley Cyrus would, preach, but hey, we'll go from there. But I want to say thank you so much, Grayson, for joining us. Venue Church is in Chattanooga and northern Georgia.
Yep.
Can you give the addresses of those?
Ooh.
Hey, that's okay because most people can't. I've talked to pastors and they can't give me their addresses, but it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing is these days we always just send people to our website, or you can we have an app you can download for the phones. Just look up Venue Church and it has everything there from messages, what we're doing, addresses, phone number, everything, or the website these days because we're in that techie world. So
you can find them on the website. It's venuechurch.com. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, any social media. Most likely you can find Venue Church on. Also, YouTube. I think y'all still post on YouTube.
We're on YouTube. We go live every Sunday on YouTube, and then we also post a message from that week on YouTube that you can go back and watch.
And they have plenty of service opportunities for you too. I know.
8:30, 10, 11:30, and 1.
Yeah, so there you go. You can be an early bird, or you can
sleep in or not. No excuses.
So yes, definitely you can go at any time. I know Grayson, he'll be over there serving somewhere, probably in either behind the scenes or on the stage. So you can, but he'll wave at you. I promise you, if you come in.
Come hunt me down.
But if you're in that area, go by and check out the Venue Church. Or, like I said, if you're not in that area, pull them up online. One of the greatest things, and like I said, I know we're ending, but I followed a video of you and your son singing You Got a Friend in Me.
Yeah, Toy Story.
Yes, it was really awesome and really cool, and I wish I could sing because I would do it with my son. But God did not call me that ministry. So.
Okay, we got each other's back.
but no, I thought it was really cool, really awesome, and it
was a fun moment.
Yeah, so definitely. So follow them. Trust me, every Sunday they post online. You can follow their Facebook page or Instagram page, and they have all the information on there also. But thank you so much, Grayson, for joining us.
For real.
And we want to thank you all for listening. We want to say we're on almost any podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts, Anchor. I could just go down the line and be on there. Also, this video will be on YouTube, and it'll also be on Facebook that you can pull it up anytime. We post every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. And so that all that information will be there on the Restoration Chapel page. And I will share it myself. So if you're not friends with Restoration Chapel, just be friends with me, and you'll see everything. So, but thank you so much, Grayson. And we want to say thank you for joining us. We love each and every one of you. God bless you. And thank you for joining Traveling Stories. Oh.